Have you ever asked yourself, why does it still hurt? Even when life looks okay from the outside. Even when you've done the work, read the books, practiced the affirmations, ticked the boxes of what should make you happy, that heaviness in your chest remains. That quiet ache behind your smile. Why Carl Jung said, what you do not bring to consciousness returns as fate. And that fate, it often looks like anxiety, burnout, apathy, like a life that technically works, but doesn't feel like yours. Because here's the truth. Most of your suffering isn't from the world. It's from the self you abandoned, trying to fit into it. This isn't weakness. It's the soul's alarm telling you that you've gone too far from your own center. And until you stop, until you truly listen, no hack, a bit, or highlight reel will bring peace. This pain isn't a problem to fix. It's a message to decode. Let me take you beneath the surface to the part you've avoided most. You think you're suffering because of your job, your partner, your circumstances. But what if I told you the pain runs deeper than that? Carl Jung called it the tragedy of the soul, to live a life that is not yours. Most of us do exactly that. Not because we're weak, but because we were trained to. From the moment you could speak, you were handed a role. Be the good child. Be agreeable. Be productive. Be normal. So you played the part. You silenced your instincts. You buried your anger. You made yourself smaller to fit the script. And somewhere along the way, you abandoned yourself. That's the real pain, not the burnout, not the anxiety, not the exhaustion, but the quiet ache of losing yourself, one performance at a time. Those are symptoms. What hurts is waking up one day and realizing you don't know who you are anymore, only who you've been expected to be. This is what we call self-abandonment. It doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens slowly. Every time you say yes when your body screams no. Every time you smile to keep the peace while your spirit breaks inside. Every time you shrink, edit, overfunction just to feel acceptable. Over time, this disconnect becomes unbearable. Your nervous system begins to revolt. Sleepless nights, sudden panic, emotional numbness, lack of motivation. These aren't malfunctions. They're messages. Messages from the part of you that's been silenced for too long. And yet, we live in a culture that rewards the performance, that applauds the mask, that congratulates you for being high-functioning while spiritually fractured. But the soul, it doesn't care about appearances. It doesn't care about your resume, your likes, or your productivity. The soul only asks one question: are you living your truth? And when the answer is no, it doesn't disappear. It descends into anxiety, into fatigue, into depression. Not to punish you, but to wake you up, to shake you, until you remember who you were before the performance began. Because suffering, at its core, isn't just pain. It's the soul's protest against a life unlived. You want to stop suffering, but you keep fighting the symptoms: anxiety, guilt, overthinking, burnout, while ignoring the source. Carl Jung called it the shadow. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. The shadow is everything in you that you've repressed, denied, or disowned. It's not just your rage, your jealousy, your unspoken desires, It's also your brilliance you were told was too much. Your ambition you learned to disguise as modesty. Your sadness you numbed to keep functioning. You've spent years hiding these parts not because they were evil, but because they didn't fit the image of who you thought you were supposed to be. So where did they go? Underground. Into the unconscious, where they now operate in the dark, shaping your behavior without your awareness. That unexplained explosion at your partner. That self-sabotage right before success. That quiet resentment towards someone who seems freer than you. All of it, shadow. Let's get real. Ever found yourself obsessively fixing everything around you, only to end up exhausted and resentful? Ever felt deep envy at someone's freedom, but dismissed it as they're just irresponsible? Ever chased achievement after achievement and still felt hollow inside? That's not your personality. That's your shadow, pulling the strings from behind the curtain. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So many of the patterns that cause you pain are not random. They are the echo of exiled parts of yourself trying to come home. Projection is one of their favorite tools. You criticize others for being too selfish because you've silenced your own needs for too long. You hate people who seek attention because there's a part of you that was never allowed to be seen. You judge others for being too emotional when your own feelings have been buried alive. And here's the danger. The more you reject the shadow, the more it grows. And not quietly. It leaks. In the sarcasm you call humor. In the control you call leadership. In the silence you call strength. In the burnout you call success. But here's the paradox. The shadow isn't evil. It's misdirected power. It's emotional energy that's been trapped, twisted, and ignored. And it doesn't want to destroy you. It wants to be reintegrated. Your anger can become your boundaries. Your envy can reveal your unlived potential. Your shame can show you where you learned to betray yourself. The shadow is not the end of you. It's the buried beginning. Seeing the shadow is step one. Now, you must face it. You've seen it. The shadow, the hidden driver, the silent saboteur behind your suffering. And maybe for the first time, you realize what hurts you most isn't what happened out there, but what has been waiting inside for too long, unseen. This is the turning point. Not understanding, but confronting. Because facing yourself means letting go of the masks you've worn to survive. The mask of, I'm fine. The mask of strength. The spiritual persona you've curated to look awake while still running from your pain. Carl Jung said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. And the descent, it begins the moment you stop trying to fix the discomfort and begin listening to it honestly, directly, viscerally. And the first place to listen, your body. Because long before your mind could name the pain, your body knew. Your chest tightens when you lie to keep the peace. Your stomach churns when you betray your own boundaries. Your shoulders ache from carrying emotions you refuse to express. This is not weakness. It is wisdom buried in muscle, breath, and bone. Neuroscience calls it somatic memory. The body stores every unspoken truth as tension, trauma, and hypervigilance. Your nervous system isn't persuaded by logic. It doesn't respond to affirmation. It responds to one thing, only safety. And if you've lived a life of self-denial, self-performance, or chronic people-pleasing your body, remembers what your mind tries to forget. So how do you begin to heal? You descend. Deliberately. Slowly. With presence. Not into pain for pain's sake, but to decode it. Try this. Sit quietly. Put one hand on your chest, the other on your belly. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply, not to escape the feeling, but to stay with it. Then name what arises. I feel shame. I feel terrified. I feel exhausted from pretending. Because when you name what lives in the dark, it loses the power to sabotage you in silence. Then write. Not to impress. Not to be poetic. To purge. This is symbolic journaling. Writing is ritual, not report. Write what your conscious mind censors. Write the truths you're afraid to say aloud. The petty thoughts, the envious flashes, the memories you told yourself were no big deal. Because when your truth hits the page, you begin to reclaim yourself. Done consistently, these practices start to shift your system. The vagus nerve, your emotional stabilizer, begins to regulate. Fight or flight slows. Breath deepens. And your awareness expands. Then, something sacred happens. You stop fighting yourself. You stop arguing with your own soul. Because when pain is seen, it begins to dissolve. When truth is welcomed, the lie doesn't need to scream anymore. This is not comfortable, but it is holy. This is the walk Jung called, crossing the internal hell with your eyes open. And every step you take inward, no matter how trembling, is a step toward freedom. Because the more you face it, the more pain reveals what it came to teach. You've spent years trying to escape pain. Pills, productivity, workaholism, dressed up as ambition, toxic relationships disguised as love, spiritual bypassing disguised as healing. All of it, a desperate attempt to not feel. But Carl Jung was clear. Suffering is not punishment. It is the soul calling you back to yourself. Pain is not your enemy. It's a messenger, a sacred alarm bell, a flashing signal from the soul that whispers or sometimes screams, "This isn't working anymore." And if you ignore that message, it doesn't go away. It goes deeper. It gets louder. It moves into your body, into migraines, chronic fatigue, insomnia, auto-immune condition, breakdowns that no amount of productivity can outrun. Take the woman who gives too much in every relationship. She calls it love. But beneath the surface, it's fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear of rejection. So she overgives, overfunctions, accepts crumbs, and calls it devotion. Until one day her body says no. Her nervous system collapses. Her immune system attacks itself. Because her mouth never did. The pain was never about love. It was a signal of self-betrayal, or the man who sabotages every good thing in his life. Every time he nears success, he unconsciously creates chaos. Why? Because deep inside, he believes he doesn't deserve peace. That stability is dangerous. That suffering is familiar, and familiar feels safe. This is what Eckhart Tolle called the pain body, an emotional residue, a psychic scar, an energetic echo of old wounds that still live in you. And here's where it gets tricky. You mistake it for intuition. You say, "This feels wrong. This doesn't sit right." But pause. Is that your intuition? Or is it trauma wearing its mask? Let's be clear. Intuition is grounded, quiet, and clear. Trauma is urgent, reactive, and defensive. But most people don't know the difference. So they trust the loudest voice inside them, not realizing that voice belongs to a pain they never processed. And that's the trap. You keep listening to the pain body as if it's wisdom, when really, it's a loop. A loop that will keep you repeating the same patterns under the illusion that you're protecting yourself. So what do? You pause. You don't run. You don't react. You don't numb. You witness. When pain arises, instead of fleeing or fixing, ask, what is this here to show me? Whose voice is this? Really, what part of me is finally asking to be seen? Because when you stop treating pain like a problem and start treating it like a guide, something profound shifts. The patterns that once felt inescapable begin to loosen. The fog lifts. The reactivity softens. And for the first time, you become the witness, not the puppet. You stop feeding the pain body. You start feeding awareness. And this is how pain transforms. Not by being silenced, not by being avoided, but by being understood. Pain is not your enemy. It's your invitation. And if you listen, really listen with presence, humility, and patience, then pain becomes something else entirely. It becomes portal. At some point, something begins to shift. Not because you've healed, not because everything feels light and easy, but because you've stopped trying to exile parts of yourself. Carl Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming whole. Not perfect, not saintly, not polished for social approval, but undivided. It begins when you stop running from your fear, your rage, your desire, your shame, and start listening instead. You begin to realize that anger you thought was dangerous, it was a boundary you never learned to set. That sadness you tried to numb, it was grief for a self you never gave love to. That shame you carried for years, it was a belief someone else planted in you, and you kept watering it. None of it was the enemy. It was just misunderstood. And when you begin to welcome everything you once rejected, you create something rare, something few people ever touch: inner coherence. The outer world may still be chaos. People may still disappoint you. Life will still be life. But inside, there's a strange and beautiful quiet. Not because you figured everything out, but because you're no longer at war with yourself. You've stopped dividing, stopped censoring, stopped hiding from your own reflection. Jung didn't only speak of the shadow. He also taught about the anima and animus, the inner feminine and inner masculine within us all. Your anima is your sensitivity, your intuition, your ability to feel deeply and receive fully. Your animus is your clarity, your structure, your ability to take action with strength and direction. But when these energies are unintegrated, we project them. We fall in love with people who carry what we disown. We clash with people who mirror what we repress. We chase completion outside because we haven't yet found it within. But when you begin to integrate these inner polarities, when the feminine and masculine within you begin to dance, instead of compete, you stop needing someone else to complete you. You become your own counterpart, your own anchor, your own home. This is the power of integration. It's not about becoming better. It's about becoming more honest, more whole. The loud and the soft, the fierce and the tender, the brave and the broken, the question and the answer. You stop trying to fix yourself and start allowing yourself. And the moment you stop rejecting parts of yourself, you stop rejecting parts of others. You judge less. You react less. You respond more. Because now, you know, not every trigger is a threat. Not every emotion is a fact. Not every thought deserves a reaction. You become spacious, observant, rooted. This is what it means to live from your center. To no longer outsource your power. To no longer perform for validation. To no longer fear your own inner world. Because true healing is not when pain disappears. It's when pain no longer owns you. Because it's been seen, met, heard, integrated. And this integration gives birth to something the world cannot give you and cannot take away: self-possession. A quiet, radiant, knowing that you belong to yourself now. And no one, no relationship, no trauma, no system gets to own you again. But let's be clear. Awakening is not arrival. It's not the end of the path. It's the beginning of responsibility. Because the moment you remember who you are is the moment life begins asking who you'll become. There comes a moment after the storm has passed when your nervous system calms. Your heart starts to breathe, and you feel different, more grounded, less reactive, more you. But don't mistake this stillness for the end. This isn't the finish line. It's the threshold. Because once you've awakened, you no longer get to pretend you didn't. You've lived the weight of self-abandonment. You've swallowed applause that never fed your soul. You've survived the descent. Now, life asks, what will you do with your light? Carl Jung didn't believe healing was just a private act. He believed that the individuated person, the one who has faced the shadow, who has reclaimed their soul, must now become an embodied presence in the world. This doesn't mean preaching or fixing others. It means something harder: living differently, saying no when silence would be easier, staying honest when the lie would win approval, choosing alignment over belonging, because now you know the cost of self-betrayal is too high. Every time you shrink, suppress, or fake it, you bleed quietly. But awakening breaks the contract. The one where you agreed to abandon yourself in exchange for temporary peace. Now, you no longer get to say, I didn't know. Now, you must choose. Choose to live as one. Not split between performance and truth. Not chasing validation while craving authenticity. Healing was never the goal. It was the gateway. And beyond it lies responsibility. Not responsibility as pressure, but as presence. Because once you've made peace with your own inner chaos, you become a safe place for others still lost in theirs. Your stillness helps them find their breath. Your clarity sharpens their vision. Your refusal to numb gives them permission to feel. This is the highest form of service. Not fixing, not forcing. Simply being with truth, with humility, with depth. To see is to serve. Because when the world is drowning in noise, those who've walked through silence become sacred. You are no longer here to fit in. You are here to disrupt quietly, to carry frequency instead of facade, to become the thing you once searched for in others. But this path will ask things of you. It will ask you to remember who you are every time the world forgets. It will ask you to stop betraying yourself just to be liked. It will ask you to speak even when your voice shakes. It will ask you to act even when your old self would freeze. And it will ask you to stay awake not once, but every day. Because awakening is not an event. It's a practice, a posture, a sacred discipline. And no, it won't always be easy. But the alternative, to go back to sleep, to live as if you don't know what you now know, that is unbearable. So now I ask you, what truth did you finally face? What mask fell away today? What part of you is ready to stop pretending? Comment below. The part of me I now reclaim is, let it be your vow. Let it be the first word in the new language of your soul. Let it be your vow to yourself, to your process, to the life that's calling you now. Because this is not the end of the video. It's the beginning of your real work. If you've come this far, it means the old self can no longer seduce you. And now that you've remembered who you are, you're not going back. Not even in your silence.